Hi, I'm Brian Ives, and you're watching or listening to How to Play Your Hand. Today, I am so happy to have Jon Heitmann with us. He's the assistant principal at Ridgewood Avenue High School in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. He's also a lifelong friend. He and I went to high school together, but our moms went to high school together. So that's how long we've known each other for, pretty much since birth. And Jon had a harrowing case of COVID 19 and a really long recovery. But Jon's an athlete, he's a coach, and through a lot of discipline, he really turned things around. So Jon, thanks so much. I'm glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
It's so nice to see you, and I'm so glad that things are going so well. So tell us your story. Like, when did you first become aware that you had COVID? This was pretty early in the
Yeah, it
epidemic,
was
right?
right at the beginning. It was actually on St. Patrick's Day. My
Oh
wife and
wow.
I we were going to host dinner for her. My in-laws were coming up, and we were watching the news. And on the news, on the screen, they were putting all the symptoms that showed signs that you had COVID. And as I'm watching it, I'm just checking it off. And yep, yep, yep. And I said to my wife, I said, you better call your parents. I just was able to check off all the symptoms that they went over on the news, and I think I have it. And so we called my in-laws. We told them not to come, and sure enough, it progressively got worse. I had a headache, I had a fever, and after 10 days, I just couldn't breathe. I really I couldn't put
Wow.
a sentence together. My wife would ask me every night because I would sleep in my chair. I wouldn't even sleep in my bed, and she would ask me every night, do you want me to stay downstairs? Do you want me to stay with you? And I'd say, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And then finally I was a Thursday night. She said, do you want me to stay downstairs? And I said, yeah. I said, yeah. After I got out of the hospital, I looked back at texts to friends, and a lot of things that I texted, I really didn't remember, but I was saying things like, I don't think I'm going to make it through the night. I don't think, I think this is really taking my life. And I woke up the next morning and I spoke to my doctor. And at that point, he wasn't rushing me to the hospital because they didn't know what to do yet. It was so early, they
Right.
didn't know what to do. So I spoke to my doctor and he told me to go to the hospital. And my wife took me to the hospital. And when we got there, you weren't allowed to be in the hospital. So they came out and took my vitals, and my blood oxygen level was in the 60s, which is really unheard of.
Yeah.
So they looked at my wife and they looked at me, and they came right out with a wheelchair and they took me inside. And they actually told my wife to wait there. And as soon as I was in there, they took my blood oxygen level again, and it was very low. And they said they were going to put me on a vent. And at that point, I didn't really know what a vent was. I really didn't. And
Yeah.
they texted my wife and told her to go home. There was nothing that she could do, and within a half hour and a half, I was on a vent. And
Wow. And so they have to put you in a coma to do that, though,
they
right?
induced a coma. I was in a coma for 2 weeks. Um, so
Wow. And so in March, were we in lockdown? Were schools closed yet? I
the
can't remember.
13th, March 13th, is when my school shut down, and that's when most of the schools shut down. That's when everything was going on, and so we were doing virtual school at that point. And I didn't think anything of it. I really didn't think that this was going to happen, and especially to me, I didn't think I was going to get sick.
Yeah.
However, at that point in my life, I was honestly in the worst shape of my life. I had just gotten over my back surgery. I was 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And
Yeah.
I checked off all the boxes. I had diabetes. I had high blood pressure. So it was a rough go, and it was very difficult when I did get clear headed after I got they took me out of the coma, to realize that my family went through that. That my wife was told to go
Yeah.
home, and then there was no up. The only update they gave her was, yeah, he's still on a vent. And you know when I spoke to the doctors afterwards, they really what I did was I called my doctor. It was actually Mother's Day. I remember I got out of the hospital. I was in the hospital on March 27th. I got out of the coma 2 weeks after that, and then I was in ICU after that for about 4 days, and then I went to a step down room. And I got out of the
Right.
hospital, I think, on April 19th. And then on Mother's Day, I decided I wanted to call my doctor just to tell him, you know, how thankful I was. And he, as soon as I got on the phone with him, he was just like, "You have no idea how lucky you are that I'm speaking to you." He goes, he goes,
Yeah.
I'll never admit to this, but we didn't really have any idea what to do. We had no idea. We thought your body was shutting down. The fact that you didn't have organ failure is unbelievable. And they would brainstorm um, every day in terms of what to do. And they gave me actually a medicine for gout is what saved my life. It's colchicine. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what they figured would take down the inflammation of my organs, and that's what really worked.
Wow. I mean, it's wild to hear a doctor say to you, we didn't really know what to do, but like, there aren't too many things that, pre 2020, there weren't too many things you could go to the hospital for that they haven't seen a million
Right.
times. This was something that they hadn't seen 5 months earlier. So, like they're just trying to figure it out in real time and save as many lives as they
Right.
can. Wow.
And it was,
Do you remember
I
waking
do.
up?
I mean, now I do. I didn't then. I remember the first thing I did was I touched my face, and I had a full beard, so I got very anxious about that because I didn't know how long I was out. I asked the nurse how long I was there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had a very tough experience when I was in a coma. I don't know whether the TVs were on or things were going on around me. I woke up thinking that I was in jail. So the first thing I asked the nurse was, "Where's my family?" I wanted to know where my family was. Why weren't they there? And at that point, I had no idea that no one was allowed in the hospital. I didn't realize why I was in the hospital. What I thought I was in jail. In my nightmares that I had when I was in a coma, I had got into a drunk driving accident and killed a 13-year-old girl. That was in my head. And
Right.
the nurse freaked out. She was writing on a dry erase board and holding it up to the doctors who were outside the window. He thinks he's in jail. So it was, it was a long process to get my bearings. I had thought I missed my whole daughter's softball season. I didn't realize that everything was shut down. I didn't remember. But things came to me
Right.
slowly, and I realized that they were the doctors and the nurses at Morristown Hospital were amazing. I mean, the one nurse used her own cell phone to FaceTime my family with me when I woke up, and that gave me an idea of what was going on, and I started getting my head back. It was
I mean, I didn't mean to laugh before. That's just so crazy that like you, for whatever reason, thought you were in jail and
yeah.
you thought something happened that obviously did not
Right, and
happen.
it was really weird. I mean, because on the 13th it was the last day of school, and that we shut down. And I remember going out
Yeah.
with colleagues. We had a beer, and we talked about what how we're going to handle this, and we were sitting outside, and that's what was in my head, and it was just really really bizarre. But it is a thing.
Wow.
My wife did a lot of research on it, and there is a syndrome that when you're in a coma, there are things that can happen to your thoughts. So, and that's exactly what happened. And it was funny because I had was it last December? I had shoulder surgery, and because I was in the condition that I was in, they wanted me to see a pulmonologist, and it just so happened the pulmonologist I saw was the pulmonologist that was in the hospital at Morristown when I was there. And it
Oh
was so,
wow.
he's looking at my name and he's looking at my case. And he goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "We would have meetings about you." He goes, "We would have meetings and talk about what we were going to do and how we were going to handle that situation." And he goes, "Wait a minute. You woke up thinking you were in jail, didn't you?" And he like, yeah.
You're that guy.
And it was just a bizarre, it was ironic that he was the one that was there. So,
Yeah. And so, I think a lot of people don't realize like, okay, you get out of a coma, you walk out. Some people might think like you get out of a coma, you're like, all right, I'm done. I'm out of the hospital. Like you had a long recovery. I remember just from watching you on
yeah.
Facebook and hearing from your
Yeah,
mom.
I had no idea. I mean, I hadn't moved a muscle in a month, and a lot of my muscle was gone. And at that time, the physical therapist did not want to spend a lot of time in my room. They were very scared.
Yeah.
The doctors and nurses were terrific, but they were very concerned about themselves. So I didn't have people coming in and out of my room all the time. It was very far in between that they would come into my room. And
Right, they thought they could still get it from you after you were out of the
yeah,
coma.
yeah. I mean, so because
Oh,
they didn't know much, and so
yeah,
the physical therapist did not spend a lot of time with me. So when I got out, I couldn't walk. They wanted to send me to Kessler or a rehab facility, but I couldn't be away from my family, any more than I was. My wife was very concerned
yeah,
that in the facility that I would catch it again, or no one knew anything at that point. So I came home. My wife is
yeah.
Kristen is a physical therapist, so we talked about it on the phone, and she had talked to the doctors and said, I will do the rehab with him and get him going. And I guess she didn't realize how bad I was because it took me, I think, 45 minutes to get from my truck to inside the house. I was very
Right.
winded. I couldn't breathe, and I just couldn't walk. I had a walker, and it took me a while to recover from that. I had set small goals every day. In terms of walking, my shower in my bedroom's upstairs, and it was 14 steps. My wife
Oh,
being a physical
yeah.
therapist had me go up and down the first step 14 times. And if I could do that, then I was sure to get up the stairs. So that was my first goal. And then I had small goals of walking outside, and my daughters were around, and Jess and Casey really helped me out a lot, and they pushed me and motivated me. And I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you if it wasn't for my family.
And thank God for them. But I can only imagine what's going through your head. I mean, I know, as you said, you'd been through surgery, you weren't in good shape, but in my mind, and probably in yours, you're a football player. You're a guy who doesn't have physical impediments from doing anything, much less going up and down stairs. That must have been a real, and I know you're used to, even though it's been a long time, like drills, like football practice at Fairlawn High School. I know is not easy. Like, this must have been a real weird experience for you to have to train so hard to basically go
No,
upstairs.
absolutely. I mean, it took a lot of motivation, and like I said, my family was my motivation. I didn't want my daughters to see me that way, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to walk and able to get back into shape, and that's what really motivated me to get healthy. I decided after that experience that I always say I'm gonna live the back nine healthy and better. I'm playing the back nine healthy
Right.
and better, and if that experience taught me anything, it's that tomorrow's never promised.
Yeah, and to ask this delicately, you sort of hear on the news, or where you get your news and information about COVID, that people who are heavier get it worse. Was that part of what made you say, like, all right, I'm dropping
Yeah,
weight
no,
now?
absolutely. I mean, I knew that I was the one that got me in that position in the first place, and I was angry at myself, and I was very angry at myself for being in that condition, and I really blame myself for getting that sick, and that I use that as a motivation also to get in better shape and to better myself.
So then you decided, all right, I'm going to lose weight. But I mean, losing 10 pounds is difficult. Like losing 100, like what, how did you sort of set your plan to be able to do it? And was your back still bothering you from the surgery you'd had before COVID even
No,
happened?
I think in terms of my physical pain, I think I was much better. I had a month of rest. It gave my
Sure.
body a break, and I found
Right.
actually a friend from high school is the one that introduced me to this health program, and it's just something I got into. And actually, after the first month of doing it, I had lost 40 pounds after the first month, and then I decided that
Wow.
I wanted to pay it forward. You always have it in the back of your mind, like why did you survive something like this? Like there's a reason why you
Yeah.
survived. Am I supposed to do something? Like am I supposed to do something great? I know I'm here for my family, and I know they need me, and I know, you know, my support is important. But I always had in the back of my mind that there was something more that I was supposed to do. So after the first month, I decided to pay it forward and become a health coach. And help others lose weight and get healthier also. And that also motivated me.
Wow.
That held me accountable, and that pushed me to move forward in a positive way because I wanted to be a good role model for them.
And so that's like a side business
Yeah, I
for
do
you
it on the
now.
side. It allows me to talk to people at night. I coach. I motivate them. I send them a weekly email every week. Send them motivational texts. So yeah, it's something I do on the side. It's something I really enjoy.
Wow. And I mean, I guess like you say, it does keep you accountable because if you slip, you can't really be
Right.
coaching anybody else and kind of telling them what they need to be
Correct.
doing.
Correct. Yeah. And it's just
Wow.
it's a great program, and it's I have a lot of friends that are doing it with me, family members, and just people that have reached out to me basically based on on the story. They've seen my Facebook page and they saw my story and they were inspired by it. And I've even had people who I don't coach who have reached out to me and just say, listen, I
Yeah.
just want to let you know I lost 70 pounds, and a lot of it just started with you seeing your results and seeing how you did, and you really inspired me. So it really makes me feel good, but I'm just I'm happy about that.
I mean, you should be. I mean, you went through something and you actually did something with it, man, and you've improved. I mean, I've seen on your Facebook pages before and afters. I think of some people even we went to
Yeah.
high school with, I'm sure, And so it's like, that's got to be something that they're proud of and you're proud of, and they probably couldn't have done it without you. Sometimes it just
Yeah.
takes the right
And it's been
coach,
a lot of fun.
and that's one thing you know how to
Yeah,
do
no,
is coach.
I'm a coach at heart, and it gives me an opportunity to motivate people, and I've reconnected with several people that we went to high school with, and it's been a lot of fun doing that too.
Wow. So, obviously, like, I think your main concern when you went into the hospital is like your wife and your kids, but you have a lot of kids in your life as assistant principal. Like, how was your condition? Like, I know like you don't kids don't see the principal as much during lockdown
Mhm.
when it's just Zoom. It's not like they're passing you in the hallway, but surely this had to be addressed to them. Like, how is that
Well, I got to tell you, Brian,
handled?
when I was out of the ICU and I got into the step down room, my wife was able to bring my charger for my phone. And my daughters and my wife actually, they said, when you get a chance, you gotta look at your messages, you gotta look at your Facebook page, and you gotta look at your Instagram. I was so overwhelmed with the amount of former players that I've coached, former students that I had
Yeah.
that just reached out to me and posted messages and prayers. And the kids at my school, when I got back, there were pictures and cards that they drew for me and messages that they left for me. Kristen was in touch with my principal that I work with every day, and she would give him updates, and he would then turn around and give the staff updates. And the amount of messages I got from my staff was just it was just very overwhelming. Um, people
Yeah.
reached out to Kristen and sent my daughters and her food. Um, my staff even sent my dog something when I was in the hospital. They sent him a package, so it was really overwhelming, and just you don't realize sometimes when you teach and you coach, you don't realize how many lives you do touch. And then when you go through something
Yeah.
like this and you see the outpouring support and the outpouring messages, it's just like I said, to me it's very overwhelming.
Yeah, I don't blame you. How was it addressed to them? Like, how did the kids find out? Like, was it a school like email out to all the
So I think
parents or?
I think my superintendent respects everyone's privacy. Um, But
Right.
where it gets Glen Ridge is an extremely small town, so
Uh,
everyone knew. And yes, an email did go out to the community and the staff saying that a staff member was in the hospital and had COVID. Um, so they were able to put it together. Unfortunately, at the
right.
same time, a police officer in Glen Ridge who he wasn't as fortunate as I am. He passed away. His
Oh,
wife is a teacher in my school. His kids go to my school, and he was a hero in the community. He really was. He was a great guy, 45 years old. So that that was very hard to hear. It was very hard to deal with. He actually died on my birthday on May 11th, and I would send
Wow.
him messages when I got out of the hospital saying I'm looking forward to just having a cup of coffee with you and talking about our experience together. And but yeah, he didn't pull through.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of us know people who didn't from that, and it's, I mean, one thing I remember that you're obviously not very political on Facebook, which is appropriate for a high school principal. I remember two things I've ever seen you express an opinion on. One was you were upset when Michael Vick got the on-air job because you're a dog lover and I'm a dog lover. One of mine is right there sitting next to me while I'm doing this interview. And the other was you just said it's getting kind of old hearing people say that COVID's not real or
Yep.
something to that extent. Were you hearing, like, I mean, it must have been shocking to you. All of your friends pretty much watched this whole thing go down on Facebook. How are you reacting to people, and I'm not being political about it, but like people actually saying, this is a hoax or
Yeah, you know what?
whatever?
I don't. I'm not a political person, and I did have people that
Yeah.
I was close with saying things and post, not saying things directly to me or saying things directly to people in general, but just making posts that were expressing that. And it just, I'm not one to reach out and say, listen, take that down. You're upset. Yeah, but these are people that I don't talk to anymore. And it just really,
Right.
I don't understand how, first of all, I don't understand how something like this becomes political. Yeah, it's a
Same.
condition. It's a virus that was spread. Why it became political? Why vaccinations became political? It's just it's beyond me. But yeah, that did piss me off. It really did.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, it's like, I mean, forgetting about Democrats or Republicans, like we saw George W. Bush on TV get his vaccine. I mean, he was a very popular president for 8 years and a Republican. And he's like, yeah, get the vaccine. Like, I'm getting it right now. I'm older than you. I'm
Right,
getting it. Like that's been the most surprising and saddest thing, other than all the deaths to me, is that like, I thought at the beginning we would all come together and it just hasn't
right.
played out that way. But, I can only imagine how that, must have hit you. And like I said, like I was really surprised when I saw that post because you
Yeah.
don't really ever
Well,
do
it
that.
was,
Um,
at that point, I remember posting that, and I remember it was someone that I was really close with who had posted something on their Instagram, and it just really pissed me off, and I felt like I just had to just put something out there.
yeah, no, I mean, I appreciated that you did it because I knew other people who had it, and it's just like again, like if you want, you want to be political, do it somewhere with something else. But like, let's just get through
Right.
this freaking thing. Um, so, what advice do you have for people who are going through whether it's a hospital, a scary hospital stay, or specifically COVID?
Just be strong. I look back, and the thoughts about my family were the only things that were on my mind, and they're what drove me to get better. And I fought for them, and I would tell people, listen, I don't know if but I lost my dad in July. He had
Yeah, no,
underlying health issues, but ultimately, on his death certificate, it says COVID. Um, it's just it's a terrible virus, and you know, families, I would just say communicate with one another. I know, there were some things that happened within our family during that time that stuck with my wife and stuck with our family. People that didn't connect with her, people that didn't reach out, and it's really hard. And life's too short to hold grudges. But my advice to any
yeah.
family is just stay together, and fight for each other and be strong with one another and communicate.
Definitely. And what did I know you kind of referenced it, but what did you learn about yourself through all this? Because that, like you've been through surgery, like being a football player is difficult, being a high school coach is difficult, but like this is a different level of difficult. What did you
Well,
learn about
first
yourself?
of all, I mean, I learned that I'm not indestructible. I'm vulnerable, and I've always told my daughters and my wife that I am the toughest person in the world. I am, and I will fight for them and be there for them and die for them. And but I learned that I am that tough. I learned that I do have that fight in me, and I'm not going to give up. And um, I could have come out of the hospital and just got back to my old ways and stayed unhealthy, but I turned it around and got myself healthy. I feel good about myself. My family feels good. I'm able to do things that I've never been able to do for a long time. That I haven't been able to do. So I learned that I do have that determination and that fight in me, and I haven't had to show that in a while, and I'm glad I had it in me.
Well, Jon, thank you so much for sharing your story and spending so much time with me. I know it's probably not that easy to talk about. And if do you have a website or like an email address that people reach out to you if they want
Sure.
to hire you
Yeah.
as a coach?
My email address is jheitmann, Heitmann, at glenridge.org. And
And that's your work
I'll use
email,
that for
but you
everything.
use
And
that
then my
for.
Facebook, I'm Jon Heitmann on Facebook and at jheights on Instagram.
And so people could just reach out to you and say, "Hey, man, I'm like, I want to drop 50 pounds. Can you help me?" And
Absolutely.
that's just how.
I will never turn anybody down. Not that the health program is for everybody. It's not for everybody. But what I do is if they're interested, I go through a health assessment with them and make sure it's right for them. And we go through it. And then it's very simple. It's one of the, I've done several programs in the past. This is one of the easiest programs I've ever done. Yeah.
Wow.
No, I've done Weight
Wow, that's
Watchers,
awesome.
isogenics,
Well,
and
hopefully,
everything I've done. I've lost weight, but I've gained it all back. This program is great because it has a maintenance program, and it's just an all around great program.
wow. Well, again, thank you for spending so much time with me and sharing your story. And thanks to all of you for watching or listening. Please subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Instagram at How You Play Your Hand PC. And thanks
It was
again,
great
Jon.
seeing
I'll
you.
speak
Thank
to you
you for having
soon.
me.